Paris, 2012. The lights dimmed. Alessandra Ambrosio stepped onto the Victoria's Secret runway, glowing under chandeliers and a million camera flashes. The diamonds caught the light, but her smile stole it. In a world built on perfection, she looked perfectly human. "It's not about the diamonds," she said. "It's about the woman inside them." The quote made headlines, but most people missed what she was really saying. This wasn't modesty or false humility. This was a woman who'd spent her entire career learning the difference between being seen and being known, between being beautiful and being happy, between wearing the costume of perfection and living the reality of being human. Today, at 43, Alessandra Ambrosio is still working, still radiant, still showing up in campaigns and on beaches and in her own life with the same warmth that made her famous. But the question that follows her, whispered in think pieces and social media comments, is simpler than it seems. How does someone become one of the world's most recognized supermodels and emerge without the bitterness, the damage, the cautionary tale that usually follows that level of fame? How does a girl from a small Brazilian town walk through the machinery of fashion, an industry designed to make women feel insufficient, and come out the other side still smiling, still grounded, still teaching her children that happiness matters more than perfection? And why, in a culture that treats models as aspirational objects rather than actual people, has Alessandra Ambrosio remained so fundamentally, undeniably human? The fashion magazines call her angel and icon, printing photos from her Victoria's Secret years, from her Guess campaigns, from the moment she became synonymous with a particular kind of warm, approachable beauty. They celebrate her business success, her social media presence, her ability to remain relevant long after the industry typically discards women her age. But they miss something essential. They miss the fact that Alessandra Ambrosio's real achievement isn't what she modeled. It's what she refused to sacrifice. In an industry that demands women trade their humanity for success, she found a way to keep both. And in doing so, she changed the conversation about what it means to be beautiful. There's no tragedy in this story, no cautionary tale, no dramatic downfall. Alessandra Ambrosio is alive, working, thriving. But there's something more interesting than tragedy here. There's the story of how someone survives an industry designed to destroy authenticity by never pretending to be anything other than who she is. Before we understand who Alessandra Ambrosio became, we need to understand where she started. And to understand that, we need to go back to Arequipa, a small town in southern Brazil where dreams were something you had quietly, where standing out wasn't celebrated but tolerated, where a girl with big dreams learned early that staying true to yourself required its own kind of courage. Arequipa, Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil, April 11th, 1981. Alessandra Corinne Ambrosio was born into a family of Italian descent in a town where everybody knew everybody, where your reputation mattered more than your ambitions, where girls were supposed to be pretty but not too pretty, confident but not too confident to take up space but never too much space. In a town that taught girls to shrink, Alessandra learned to stretch toward the sun. From the beginning, Alessandra didn't fit the mold. She was tall, taller than seemed necessary for a girl, thin in ways that made older women cluck their tongues and suggest her mother feed her more. And she had features that were striking rather than conventionally pretty. Big ears that she was self-conscious about, a wide smile that seemed too enthusiastic, eyes that were always looking somewhere beyond Arequipa's borders. At 11 years old, Alessandra made a decision that would shape the rest of her life, though not in the way she expected. Self-conscious about her ears, encouraged by well-meaning adults who thought they were helping, she underwent plastic surgery to fix them. The surgery went wrong. The result was worse than before, asymmetrical, obvious, a source of new insecurity rather than relief. Perfection failed her. Humanity didn't. Most people would remember this as a wound. Alessandra chose to remember it as a lesson. "That mistake taught me the beauty of imperfection," she'd say years later. And she meant it literally. The botched surgery forced her to confront a truth that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. That the pursuit of physical perfection is a trap. That trying to fix yourself to meet external standards only creates new problems. That the only way out is radical acceptance. At 11, she couldn't articulate this philosophy. She just knew that she was done trying to change her body to make other people comfortable. From that moment forward, Alessandra made a silent promise to herself. She would work with what she had, not against it. She started paying attention to what made her feel beautiful rather than what made her look beautiful. The way sunshine felt on her skin, the freedom of running barefoot on the beach, the joy of moving her body in ways that felt good rather than correct. These weren't revolutionary insights. They were the simple wisdom of a child who'd learned pain has a purpose. In the years that followed, while other girls her age were learning to contour their faces and hide their perceived flaws, Alessandra was learning something else. That the body you're born with is the only one you get, and fighting it is exhausting. She'd watch her friends obsess over makeup tutorials and diet fads, see them shrink themselves to fit someone else's idea of acceptable, and she'd feel grateful for the botched surgery that had taught her early what most people learn too late, or never learn at all. Her mother noticed the change. "You're different now," she said once, not critically but observantly. And Alessandra nodded. She was different. The surgery had failed to make her conventionally pretty, but it had succeeded in making her free. Could this early confrontation with imperfection, this refusal to keep chasing physical perfection, have been the foundation for everything that followed? As a teenager, Alessandra was athletic, outdoorsy. The girl who preferred volleyball on the beach to hanging around shopping malls. She was popular, but not in the way that required performing a specific kind of femininity. She was just herself. Loud when she felt like being loud. Quiet when she wanted to be quiet. Comfortable in her own skin in ways that made other people comfortable around her. At 14, she wrote in her diary, "I'll be known for my smile." It wasn't prediction or ambition, it was observation. She'd noticed that when she smiled, really smiled, not the practiced smile of school photos, but the genuine expression of happiness, people responded differently. They relaxed. They smiled back. Her smile created space for other people to be happy, and she liked that feeling more than she liked being admired. At 15, everything changed. Not dramatically. Alessandra's life has never been about dramatic transformations, but significantly. She entered the elite model look contest in Brazil, not because she dreamed of being a model, but because her friends dared her, and she liked adventures more than she feared failure. She placed in the top 20. Not first, not the winner, but high enough to be noticed, high enough that scouts started calling, high enough that doors began opening to a world beyond Erikim. The modeling industry in the mid-1990s was undergoing a shift. The supermodel era of Cindy, Naomi, and Christy was ending. Fashion was looking for something different, younger, fresher, less glamorous, and more accessible. Brazilian models were becoming particularly sought after, bringing a warmth and vitality that contrasted with the cool detachment of high fashion. Alessandra fit this moment perfectly. She had the height, the bone structure, the photogenic quality that cameras loved. But more than that, she had presence without pretension. She could look aspirational without being intimidating, sexy without being cold, beautiful without making other women feel inadequate. Her early work was local, Brazilian magazines, regional campaigns. But in 1996, she appeared on the cover of Elle Brazil, and suddenly international agencies were interested. The big moment came when Guess, the brand that had launched Claudia Schiffer and Anna Nicole Smith, chose Alessandra as their next face. The Guess campaigns were important, not just for Alessandra's career, but for what they revealed about her particular gift. In photos, she managed to look both like a fantasy and like someone you could actually know. The poses were sexy but never sleazy, confident but never arrogant. She made desire look like joy rather than power, which was something new in fashion advertising. Behind the scenes, photographers noticed something unusual. Most young models needed constant direction. Move your chin, shift your weight, soften your eyes. Alessandra seemed to understand instinctively what the camera wanted. More than that, she understood what the photo was supposed to communicate and could embody that feeling rather than just mimic the pose. She doesn't model at you, one photographer said. She invites you in. It was true. Where other models performed sexuality or glamour or cool detachment, Alessandra performed something rarer. Genuine pleasure in her own body, real confidence that didn't need to prove itself, warmth that made you feel like she was smiling at you specifically rather than at a camera lens. This quality, this ability to be both aspirational and accessible, would become her signature. In an industry that typically demanded models choose between being sexy or being likable, Alessandra refused the binary. She was both effortlessly because she understood they weren't opposites. I didn't want to be a dream, she said later. I wanted to live one. The distinction mattered. Most models of that era were selling aspiration. Be beautiful like me, dress like me, want what I have. Alessandra was selling something else, the feeling of being comfortable in your own skin, of moving through the world with confidence that came from internal certainty rather than external validation. She was selling happiness, and it turned out happiness was more commercially viable than anyone had realized. By the early 2000s, Alessandra was working steadily for major brands. Armani, Dolce & Gabbana, Ralph Lauren. She was making good money, building a reputation, becoming known in the industry as someone who was both talented and easy to work with. Directors loved her because she took direction well but also brought ideas. Photographers appreciated that she understood light, could adjust her poses in real time based on what was working. Other models liked her because she didn't play the competition games, didn't create drama, treated everyone with the same warm professionalism. But the real breakthrough, the moment that would define her career, came in 2004 when she was chosen as a Victoria's Secret angel. Victoria's Secret in the early 2000s was arguably the most powerful force in fashion. The annual fashion show was a cultural phenomenon, broadcast on network television, watched by millions. Being an angel wasn't just a modeling job. It was a brand, an identity, a guarantee of fame and fortune if you could handle the pressure. Alessandra joined what would become known as the Brazilian Trinity. Herself, Gisele Bündchen, and Adriana Lima. 3 Brazilian models who would dominate the Victoria's Secret runway for the next decade and change fashion's understanding of what beauty could look like. But where Gisele was aspirational perfection and Adriana was smoldering intensity, Alessandra was something else. Warmth. She was the angel you could imagine being friends with, the one whose success felt celebratory rather than intimidating, whose beauty enhanced rather than diminished the women watching. The distinction wasn't accidental. While her fellow angels were cultivating mystique, carefully controlled social media, limited access, the maintenance of fantasy, Alessandra was doing something different. She was being herself. She posted photos from family barbecues. She talked openly about missing Brazil. She admitted when shoots were difficult or uncomfortable. She was, in an industry built on artifice, almost radically authentic. Some industry veterans warned her this approach would backfire. Don't let them see behind the curtain, one older model advised. Mystery is what keeps you valuable. But Alessandra understood something that the old guard didn't. The culture was changing. Women didn't want untouchable goddesses anymore. They wanted role models who felt real, who acknowledged the work behind the image, who admitted that perfection was performance and underneath it they were just people trying their best. Her first Victoria's Secret fashion show was in 2004, and even then, watching the footage, you can see what set her apart. Other models walked with fierce determination or sultry swagger. Alessandra walked like she was having fun. Her smile wasn't the practiced model smile. It was genuine delight. She looked like someone who couldn't believe her good fortune and wanted to share that feeling with everyone watching. She didn't walk the runway to be worshipped. She walked it to share the joy of being alive. Heidi Klum, who was already a veteran angel by then, said, "Alessandra is the sunshine backstage." And it was true. While other models were managing pre-show nerves with cigarettes or last-minute workouts, Alessandra was dancing to the music, helping other girls with their wings, making jokes to ease the tension. This wasn't naivete or lack of professionalism. It was a conscious choice about how to move through a high-pressure environment. Alessandra had learned something that took other people decades to figure out, that you can take your work seriously without taking yourself seriously. That success is more sustainable when you enjoy the process rather than just the outcome. Over the next 13 years, Alessandra became one of the most recognizable angels in Victoria's Secret history. She walked in show after show, wore the fantasy bra multiple times, became the face of countless campaigns. And through it all, she maintained something rare in fashion: the ability to be sexy without being objectified, to be aspirational without being unattainable, to be famous without losing herself. But it wasn't without challenges. In 2008, Alessandra made a decision that would become one of the defining moments of her career. She walked the Victoria's Secret runway just 3 months after giving birth to her first child. The industry response was immediate and conflicted. Some people celebrated it as proof that women could balance motherhood and career. Others criticized it as setting impossible standards, suggesting that expecting women to return to runway-ready bodies months after childbirth was harmful and unrealistic. Alessandra's response was characteristically nuanced. "I'm not telling anyone what they should do," she said. "I'm showing what I chose to do. Every woman's journey is different." What she didn't say, what she didn't need to say, was that walking that runway wasn't about proving anything to anyone else. It was about proving something to herself, that becoming a mother hadn't diminished her but expanded her, that her body's ability to create life was more impressive than its ability to sell lingerie, that she could be both things, mother and model, without having to choose. The preparation for that walk told its own story. Alessandra didn't crash diet or punish her body back into pre-pregnancy shape. She worked with trainers who understood postpartum recovery, ate to nourish rather than restrict, focused on feeling strong rather than looking thin. When she stepped onto that runway, she wasn't performing a fantasy of bouncing back. She was demonstrating what sustainable recovery actually looked like. Her fellow angels were supportive but also slightly awed. "I don't know how you did it," one told her backstage. Alessandra's response was honest. "I didn't do it alone, and I'm not going to pretend I did." She talked openly about the help she had: trainers, nutritionists, nannies, a support system that most women don't have access to. This honesty was important. She wasn't claiming her experience was universal or achievable for everyone. She was simply refusing to participate in the lie that maintaining a modeling career while raising children was easy or natural or something women should be able to do without help. The moment became iconic. Photos of Alessandra on the runway, 3 months postpartum, looking radiant and strong and unmistakably happy, circulated globally. For some women it was inspiring. For others it was intimidating. But for Alessandra it was simply honest. This was her body, her life, her choice. Through her 30s, Alessandra continued working for Victoria's Secret while building other aspects of her career. She appeared in films, hosted television shows, became a fixture on red carpets. But she was also becoming more selective about the work she took, more vocal about the values she wanted her career to represent. When Victoria's Secret faced criticism for lack of diversity and outdated beauty standards, Alessandra was one of the angels who publicly supported change. Every woman deserves wings, not just the ones that fit, she said, a statement that was both supportive of the brand that had made her famous and critical of its limitations. In 2017, Alessandra announced she was leaving Victoria's Secret, not because of scandal or conflict, but because 17 years was enough. She'd accomplished what she set out to accomplish. She'd become one of the most successful angels in the brand's history. She'd made her money, built her reputation, and now she wanted to do something else. She hung up the wings not in defeat, but because she'd already learned how to fly. What came next surprised some people but made perfect sense to anyone who'd been paying attention. Alessandra launched Gal Floripa, a swimwear and lifestyle brand designed by women for women. The line wasn't about aspirational perfection. It was about celebrating women's actual bodies, actual lives. The marketing featured models of different ages, sizes, and backgrounds. The designs prioritized comfort alongside style. The brand launch was telling. Instead of the typical celebrity fashion line, expensive, exclusive, designed to capitalize on name recognition, Gal Floripa was affordable and accessible. The swimsuits came in a wide range of sizes. The marketing imagery showed women actually swimming, playing beach volleyball, living life rather than just posing for it. I wanted to create what I wish had existed when I was younger, Alessandra explained. Swimwear that makes you feel good, not self-conscious. Fashion that celebrates you, not the other way around. Critics in the fashion industry were initially skeptical. Another celebrity vanity project, they assumed. But Gal Floripa proved them wrong. The brand was profitable, sustainable, and genuinely popular. Not because of Alessandra's name, but because it filled a real need. Women were tired of swimwear that required perfect bodies. They wanted to feel beautiful at the beach, not anxious about being photographed. Alessandra's involvement wasn't just nominal. She designed pieces, attended fittings, listened to customer feedback, and made changes. She treated the brand the same way she'd treated her modeling career, as craft requiring attention, respect, and genuine care about the end result. It was everything Alessandra's career had been building toward. Fashion that made women feel good rather than inadequate. Beauty that was accessible rather than exclusive. Success that was measured in happiness rather than just sales figures. The brand was successful, but more importantly, it was authentic. This wasn't a celebrity vanity project or a cash grab. It was Alessandra applying everything she'd learned about beauty, confidence, and joy to creating something that actually served women rather than just profiting from their insecurities. Alongside her business ventures, Alessandra deepened her philanthropic work. She became an ambassador for UNICEF, focusing on children's rights and education in Brazil. She worked with the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, raising awareness and funds for research. She used her platform not to sell products, but to amplify causes she cared about. It's not about being an angel, she said. It's about being human. Today, at 43, Alessandra Ambrosio lives between Los Angeles and Brazil, raising her 2 children with the same values that guided her own life: authenticity, joy, gratitude. She still models occasionally, choosing projects that interest her rather than chasing every opportunity. She runs her business, manages her investments, shows up for her philanthropic commitments, but mostly she lives. She posts photos on social media of herself at the beach, no makeup, hair messy, genuinely happy. She plays volleyball with her kids. She cooks traditional Brazilian food. She travels, practices yoga, chases sunsets instead of perfection. When people ask about her career longevity, how she's remained relevant and successful in an industry that typically discards women over 30, Alessandra's answer is simple. The more real you are, the more beautiful you become. The secret was never the lingerie. It was the light of a woman who liked her life. It sounds like a platitude until you realize she's built her entire career on this principle. While other models were airbrushing their Instagram posts and performing perfection, Alessandra was posting photos of herself with messy hair and no makeup. While others were claiming to wake up like this, she was honest about the work that goes into maintaining a modeling career while admitting that work doesn't define her worth. Her approach to aging has been particularly radical. In an industry obsessed with youth, Alessandra has refused to perform anxiety about getting older. She doesn't talk about anti-aging or turning back the clock. She talks about growing, evolving, becoming more herself. When a journalist asked her about her skincare routine, expecting the usual recitation of expensive products and procedures, Alessandra's answer was disarmingly simple. I sleep. I drink water. I spend time with people I love. I chase sunsets, not perfection. The journalist pressed for more. Surely there was some secret, some product, some procedure that explained how she looked so good at 43. Alessandra laughed. The secret is that I like my life. When you're happy, it shows. No amount of skincare can fake that. It wasn't false modesty. Alessandra does take care of herself. She exercises, eats well, probably uses good skincare products. But she refuses to participate in the fiction that beauty is something you can buy or achieve through self-discipline alone. She knows what actually makes people attractive: confidence, kindness, genuine enjoyment of life. And she knows those things can't be bottled or sold. Happiness is the best highlighter, she says, and means it literally. The photos of Alessandra at 43 show someone more radiant than she was at 25. Not despite her age, but because of it. The confidence in her eyes, the ease in her smile, the comfort in her body, these things can't be faked or filtered. They're the result of decades of choosing authenticity over approval. She keeps a photo from when she was 14, skinny, awkward, uncertain, with a note written underneath in her handwriting. Be kind to her. She became me. It's a reminder that the insecure girl from Arakim is still part of who she is, that the journey from there to here required compassion more than ambition, that the most important relationship she'd ever have was the one with herself. In recent interviews, Alessandra talks about fashion with the perspective of someone who's been both inside and outside the system. She loves the creativity, the collaboration, the art of transforming fabric and light and movement into something meaningful. But she's also honest about the industry's problems, the impossible standards, the lack of diversity, the way it can make women feel insufficient even as it profits from their participation. Perfection is boring, she says. Personality isn't. This philosophy extends to how she's raising her children. She doesn't hide them from the public, but she's careful about how much exposure they get. She wants them to understand that their mother's career is one part of her life, not the definition of it. She teaches them about gratitude, about hard work, about finding joy in simple things. When her daughter asked her once what the most important part of being beautiful was, Alessandra answered, being kind. Everything else is just accessories. Her legacy isn't in any single photo shoot or runway walk, though there are dozens that could claim iconic status. It's in the shift she represented, a move away from unattainable perfection toward accessible authenticity, from beauty as performance toward beauty as self-expression, from models as aspirational objects toward models as actual human beings with something to say beyond buy this product. When perfection broke her, she learned to stay imperfect. Her superpower wasn't beauty, it was warmth. She didn't come back to prove recovery, she came back to prove expansion. After the cameras faded, she created the light herself. There's a photograph from Vogue Brazil in 2016 that captures this perfectly. Alessandra on Copacabana Beach, shot from behind, her hair blowing in the wind, the sunset reflecting off the water. She's not posing. She's just being, existing in that moment, and the camera has captured something that goes beyond beauty into territory that's harder to name. Freedom, maybe, or peace, or the particular grace that comes from being completely comfortable in your own skin. But when people mention the photo, Alessandra deflects. "That's just me being happy," she says. "Happiness isn't something you perform. It's what happens when you stop performing." That might be her most important lesson, that the end goal isn't to be perfect or even beautiful in the traditional sense. It's to be integrated, to have your inside match your outside, to move through the world as one coherent self rather than a collection of images designed for other people's consumption. Alessandra Ambrosio isn't perfect. She'll tell you that herself, probably with that characteristic laugh that makes you feel like you're in on the joke rather than the target of it. She's made mistakes, taken jobs she regrets, navigated the industry's compromises imperfectly. But she's done something rarer than perfection. She's remained fundamentally herself through decades of fame, maintained her warmth through an industry designed to make people cold, and used her platform to expand rather than narrow what it means to be beautiful. "Confidence is my favorite outfit," she said once. And you can see it in every photo, every interview, every moment she shows up in the world. Not the fake confidence of someone performing certainty, but the real confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are and deciding that's enough. She's still working, still creating, still showing up on beaches and runways and in her own life with that same sun-bright smile that made her famous. The Brazilian girl who wrote in her diary, "I'll be known for my smile," was right. But what she couldn't have known at 14 was that the smile itself would become revolutionary. Proof that you can be successful without becoming cynical, famous without losing yourself, beautiful without making other people feel inadequate. When asked recently what she wants to be remembered for, Alessandra paused for a long time before answering. "I don't want to be remembered for how I looked," she finally said. "I want to be remembered for how I made people feel." And there it is, the entire philosophy of Alessandra Ambrosio distilled into one sentence. In an industry that treats women as visual commodities, she insisted on being a feeling. In a culture that values appearance over essence, she chose to be essence first, and let the appearance follow. Gisele Bündchen once said about her, "Alessandra has the rarest beauty, the kind that's kind." And she was right. But what makes that kindness beautiful isn't its rarity, it's its authenticity. Alessandra isn't performing kindness or using it as a brand strategy. She's genuinely warm, genuinely interested in other people, genuinely happy with her life. That genuine happiness, that refusal to trade joy for success or authenticity for approval, is what makes her story so compelling. In a world full of cautionary tales about fame destroying people, Alessandra Ambrosio is proof that it doesn't have to. That you can walk through the machinery of celebrity and come out the other side still whole, still yourself, still smiling. The lights that dimmed in Paris in 2012 have never really gone off. They've just shifted, moved from the Victoria's Secret runway to beaches in Brazil, from high-fashion photo shoots to Instagram posts with her kids, from performing beauty to living it. The lights of Paris went out that night, but the sun rose somewhere else, on the beaches of Brazil, on the faces of women who finally saw themselves in her. She didn't conquer fashion. She transcended it. She showed that the angel wings were just costume, that the real magic was always underneath. A Brazilian girl who learned early that happiness was better than perfection, and spent her entire career proving it. If perfection is a performance, what happens when the curtain finally falls? And if happiness is the new beauty, why are we still so afraid to smile?